Welcome to Week 1, Day 2 of Intro to Fashion. Today we're going to examine fashion throughout different periods in history. In order to get the most out of this lesson, you will need internet access and Microsoft Word. What you will learn. This week, we will look at the history of fashion starting around the mid-1800s into the 2000s. We will review a brief history of the styles popular during those times and take a look at one major designer of that time. So let's get started with answering the question, what is fashion history? As long as there have been clothing, there have been unique ways of styling them. Fashion history really begins when we start looking at clothing as not just a way to cover our bodies, but as a tool for communicating who we are. We'll begin in the 1800s. In the mid-1800s, women's fashion was characterized by large hoop skirts and tight corsets that emphasized an hourglass figure. Men's clothing consisted of tailored suits with high collars and top hats. Designer Charles Frederick Worth became known for revolutionizing women's fashion by introducing the concept of haute couture, which involved creating custom-made garments for individual clients. The early 1900s. During the 1900s, women's fashion evolved to include looser-fitting dresses and the introduction of the Gibson girl look, which emphasized a smaller waist and larger bust. Men's clothing also became more relaxed with the introduction of sportswear. Paul Perot was a prominent designer who introduced a more relaxed and flowing style of clothing for women, moving away from the restrictive corsets and hoop skirts of the previous era. The 1920s. In the 1920s, women's fashion underwent a significant change with the rise of the flapper look, characterized by shorter hemlines, looser clothing, and a more androgynous style. Men's fashion also saw a shift towards more casual and sporty attire. Designer Coco Chanel made a significant impact on fashion in the 1920s with her introduction of the little black dress and her incorporation of masculine elements into women's clothing, such as tailored suits and trousers. The 1950s. In the 1950s, women's fashion returned to a more feminine and structured style, with hourglass figures emphasized once again through the use of tight-fitting dresses and corsets. Men's fashion during this time was characterized by sleek, tailored suits and fedoras. One major contributor to 1950s fashion was Christian Dior, who became known for his glamorous and feminine designs, particularly the New Look silhouette, which emphasized a tiny waist and full skirt. The 1960s. In the 1960s, fashion became more experimental and daring, with shorter hemlines and the introduction of bold prints and colors. Men's fashion saw the rise of the mod look, characterized by slim-fitting suits and a more youthful and edgy style. Mary Quant made a major contribution to fashion with her introduction of the miniskirt, which became a symbol of the era's youth culture and liberation. The 1980s. During the 1980s, fashion became more colorful and flamboyant, with the introduction of shoulder pads and oversized clothing. Men's fashion also became more extravagant, with the introduction of power suits and neon-colored accessories. During the 1980s, Giorgio Armani's tailored and luxurious suits became a symbol of power dressing for both men and women, reflecting the era's focus on success and excess. The 1990s. During the 1990s, style was a mixture of hip-hop culture, preppy, and grunge, and was often characterized by bold logos, bright colors, and graphic prints. During this time, streetwear fashion emerged as a major trend, particularly in urban areas. The popularity of streetwear fashion also led to the rise of sneaker culture, with designer collaborations and limited edition releases becoming highly coveted among collectors. Designers Alexander Martin, Damon John, Keith Perrin, and Carl Brown created the brand FUBU, which was an acronym for Us, By Us. The brand became known for their oversized clothing, baggy pants, and athletic-inspired apparel. You may also know Damon John, for he is a shark on Shark Tank. The early 2000s. In the 2000s, fashion became more eclectic, With a mixture of different styles and influences from past decades, men's fashion saw a return to a more classic and tailored style, while women's fashion continued to experiment with bold colors and patterns. In the early 2000s, Marc Jacobs became known for his innovative and playful designs, particularly his collaborations with artists and musicians that brought a fresh perspective to fashion. Current day. Today, fashion continues to change with the introduction of new designers and cultural influences. Technology such as 3D printing is also largely influencing fashion. As the world continues to evolve, so will fashion. So what's the point? Why do we just go over decades of fashion? Well, knowing fashion history is a key component in shaping the future of fashion. In the next few slides, we'll go over how exactly that is. Inspiration. One reason why knowing fashion history is important is because fashion history can provide an endless source of inspiration for designers. By studying the styles, techniques, and trends of the past, designers can gain a deeper understanding of the evolution of fashion, which can inform their own design process. Here you can see how Mary Quant's mini dresses from the 1960s were used as an inspiration for Ralph Lauren's dress collection in the late 2000s. Context. Understanding the historical context in which certain styles and trends emerge can provide designers with a richer understanding of their meaning and significance. This knowledge can help designers create more meaningful and culturally relevant designs. If we look at the hippie fashion of the 1960s, we can see how the clothing mirrored the overall theme of the decade, freedom from social norms. The oversized, flowing garments were a political statement which told society and the government that the young people of that generation would no longer succumb to old, buttoned-up traditions. Innovation. By studying fashion history, designers can discover forgotten techniques or materials that they can bring back to the forefront. This can lead to innovation and the creation of new techniques, materials, and styles. Here you see an example of the S-bend corset of the 1800s, alongside a modern updated waist trainer. Trend forecasting. Fashion history can provide valuable insights into the cyclical nature of fashion trends. By analyzing past trends, designers can predict future trends and incorporate them into their designs. In the 90s, the style from the movie Clueless rocked the fashion world. In 2023, 90s fashion has returned full force. Forever 21 forecasted ahead and released pieces similar to those that were once made popular by the movie Clueless. In conclusion, having knowledge of fashion history can help evolve you as a designer. Knowing what came before can help you to innovate and create something even better. Even though so many things have already been done with fashion, there are many more avenues to pursue. Through the study of history, you can create the perfect look for the times. Homework for today. The assignment. Pick one decade between 1900 and 2020. Choose a designer from that decade. Google them and fill out the form. Add 2 images of that designer's work. Here is an example of a completed assignment. So that is the end of today's lesson. Tomorrow we will talk about technical design.